Dr. Wood, author of the book Miracles in Minutes, and this morning's video is called Creating Your Future. So I had a conversation the other day with someone, and I was talking about the future, and they said, I don't ever think about it. I was like, you're kidding me, right? Like, you never think about your future. No, I don't ever think about it. I'm like, well, you do know what's going to show up. So, and I'll take the onus on my part that I assumed that everyone knew about this, about using visualization to create your future. So athletes, you know, if you're an athlete, most athletes are familiar with this concept. Before the game, I learned this in middle school. One of our coaches told us to lay down on the field or the bleachers and start seeing yourself play the game before you play the game. I think even Sun Tzu said the game's won before it's played. So you play it out in your head. You're projecting. As all human beings, we project. So if you play out the game in your head of how you're going to play this ball game, you project it into the future. And the funny thing is, you'll run into it. So the same thing happens for our lives. Like, let's suppose you want to create the relationship you always wanted. You know, what does that look like? What does that sound like? What would it feel like? How do you move? How do you flow in that context of relationship? And you start visualizing it, and you visualize, and the more you go back and visualize and are with this imagery, it's your imagination, your image nation. You're imagining. Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge. It doesn't matter what you know. If you can imagine it, you can create something that doesn't exist. So, anyway, with using your visualization, you can start to create the life of your dreams. So I told this person, I was like, I've done a lot in a short time on this planet here, and I said I created all of it. I created the family that I wanted. Not all of it, but I got my daughters and the relationships I want. I created that. I imagined what that would look like and what that would sound like, and I imagined what the relationship would look like, and I kept going into my imagination and creating that. So I do that in weightlifting, especially if you got, some big weight on the bar. Now you're at the edge of ability and the unseen you. So what I would do is lay down, on the bench, like on the bench press is a great one, or the squat rack, or even deadlift. You're up against that belief in your mind of that barrier of this is all you can do. So I start seeing myself do it, and then how I'm doing it, and the ease I'm doing it, and I put confidence in there, I put courage in there, I put strength in there, and I put laughter in there after I'm done. So I start visualizing all these things in my head, like if I'm laying on the bench press, and then if I did it right, it just happens. It just happens. See, I projected it out into the future, and then all I had to do was just do it at that point. I was already clear what I was going to do. I was very certain in my intentions. I was certain in my emotional states, and I created it and projected it. So most people are projecting a negative future for themselves. They only see themselves running into negativity. They only see themselves bad things happening. And you go, so it's called an identity, and you go into your past memories of what happened to you in the past, and all you do is project them into the future it's like Groundhog Day. You're just recreating your life, the same one. Can you see, so sometimes you got to clean your head, do some deep breathing and create space for your head. Like there's nothing in here. There's nothingness. And out of nothing, you can create the new. If you keep bringing up the past into the present, you'll just recreate what you've always done. Now you're stuck. But if you could breathe and relax and imagine seeing yourself do something and feel that in your body, and see that in your body, and see that in the real world, in your imagination, you're feeling it, it just happens. So how do I know? I used to practice on the bench press, and I would know if I got it right or not, whether the bar is here or it's here. And I can tell you how much doubt it takes. just a thimbleful. It takes just a smidge of doubt from that bar being up to being on your throat. The more relaxed you are, the more certain you are, the more of a flow state you are, it just happens. So if you start playing around with your imagination to create your life, you'll be surprised what you can do. I mean, another thing you can do is draw it out on a sheet of paper. You know, write it, draw a picture of this is what you imagine yourself. So now it's actually, it activates it has to be written. It's because there's a special area of the brain called the reticular activating system. When you start to draw it down, you don't always have to do this, but when you write it down and start drawing a picture of the relationship you want, and this is going on, you're having all this fun, and you start drawing it out, and then if you draw it out, you start to get in the feelings of that and feeling the joy of it, and then giving thanks right now in this moment and giving thanks for this running into this with certainty. It's pretty much a certainty. That's what you're going to run into. Open to the variables of God and the universe to fill in some detail here. You know, you're not attached to the modus of how it's happening. You're committed to the outcome. Attachment versus commitment. Most people are attached. It has to happen this way. The problem is the universe can serve it another way and still get you to that goal. And if you could be open to how God or the universe is going to supply that, you know, you don't have to be God anymore. You know, it takes a lot of responsibility off yourself of making everything perfect. But if you start imagining and creating, what does it feel like with certainty? What emotions do you need? You can look at your picture, and if it feels incomplete of what you're creating in the future, ask yourself, what's missing? What's missing for you having the belief that this will be so? Maybe it's confidence. Maybe if you had this in there, what is it you need to put into this picture that culminates the belief and goes, I got it. It's mine. And once you're there, then you just keep practicing that, and then that's how you create your future. It's how you create your life, and you'll be surprised what happens. Don't forget, you're open to how the universe or God's going to do that. You're just committed to seeing that outcome and that picture and that reality in your life. So as humans, we always project. What do you want to project? What you do want or what you don't want? Most people are projecting what they don't want. Dr. Wood, have a good one.